Hello, welcome to day 20 of the 30 days, 30 critique sessions. Man, only 10 more. You might not want that end, but I'm getting close to it. As much as I love this, I really do. It is a lot of work. Today is a no twist day because this is the pre-recorded Sundays. I pre-record Sundays so that I can go to church with my family and not have to do all the crazy hustle and bustle in the morning while also creating a video. Anybody who has kids or had kids knows what that's like. So we're just going to jump right into the critique, then go into the work, show our showcase, and close this one out. Our critique image comes from F64 Elite member Jeff MEERS. Thank you very much for supplying this, Jeff. I like this. You know what this reminds me of? There's a place not too far from me called Lowe's Bluffs. And at Lowe's Bluffs, there are sometimes millions of snow geese that go there. Well, it's in the hundreds of thousands, but it feels like millions when you see them. So what I see behind these birds are these, they aren't snow geese, but the concept here is that when I'm going there, I'm usually trying to photograph bald eagles or hawks, and there's a ton of snow geese there as well. So I'm trying to find my target. This would be the spoonbills that we have here. He's trying to find that target amongst all of this just tapestry of other birds. And that can be really hard to make them stand out when you've got all this chaos that's happening behind them. So I can empathize with this shot, but I really like the positioning of these birds and how they are in the scene. I think maybe a little bit more, instead of being tightly cropped, might help out a little bit with this composition. But other than that, I mean, I'm connecting with that one spoonbill's eye that is just like, we see the side of it just right here. I see just this right side. Boom. It's like looking directly at me. And usually, you see two eyes looking at you, but this is just like a side eye staring right through me. So that's pretty cool. So my disconnect really doesn't come from tones. It doesn't come from colors. It comes from the separation of foreground to background. And, I dabble in wildlife photography. I wouldn't say that I'm amazing at it or have spent a copious amount of time with it, but I will say this. I have a 200 to 600 Sony lens that when I throw a 1.4 teleconverter on it, it really takes my aperture, my minimum aperture, and makes it rather small. So it's hard for me to get that blurred bokeh kind of look that we want in the background for these birds. So because I don't have the wicked expensive $12,000 lens like most of us hobbyists don't, I choose to shoot with that 200 to 600, but I know that in post I'm going to have to do some foreground background separation to get these to separate. Okay, so the first thing I want to pursue is a crop. I feel like there's just a little bit too much up here. Quite frankly, if I look at this image, I feel like down here there's a lot of excess bird. So then when I see kind of like these bigger gaps right here, it doesn't make it feel like they go on forever. So I'm going to press C for the crop tool, and I'm going to crop this to about a 4x6. I think right now it's probably an 8x10. So you could go 8x10 and then just come in like this, and that could work. But I want that excess space that's on the right, so it feels like we aren't so tight in on these two birds here. So I'm going to make this a 4x6. So I'll just change that to a 6, and that should do us a wonderful job. Okay, so that works just like that. And I'll just go ahead and I guess commit to this crop. It's a little bit too close to the tops of their heads. I kind of want equal balance between the left side and the top. And to do that, I might have to sacrifice some of that. If we didn't want to go with the standard crop, though, and just clear this, we could just add that bottom back in. And, might be a little bit harder to print, but it'll still work out. I think that crop is important. Okay, so now I need to make a copy of this. So I'm going to duplicate the background to make a copy. And then what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to make a selection for the birds. You've seen me do this in past critiques here in the 30 days series, but I'm just going to make a selection for these birds and make sure it does a good job. It might not make a decent selection of that, so let me do this. Let me go to select and then go to subject and see if it makes a good subject selection. It's usually pretty good about pulling out the perfect subject. And it did a pretty good job here. I might just come in here with my lasso tool, alter option, and just trace this down like so, like this. Okay. And then what I'll also do is include the foreground in here. So I'll press and hold shift and include that foreground. Okay. And then I'll get my lasso and just grab a little bit more of this. It doesn't have to be perfect because I'm actually going to blend this stuff anyway on this layer. So I'm okay with that. And then all I have to do is duplicate my subject and that bird. So then on this one, I'm going to make a selection just for the birds and I'm going to blur them. So I need to go again, select and then go to subject. And what I'm going to do with these birds is I'm going to make a bigger selection outside of them. So go to select and then go to expand and then make that like 2 pixels and then shift F5 and then I'm going to fill with content aware. Okay. And then control D. It doesn't have to be perfect. All I'm trying to do is separate my birds from the background so that when I blur this background layer here and I give it the Gaussian blur that I want to separate them from the background, it doesn't blur the birds. Because what happens is sometimes people will make a selection for the background and just blur the background, but some of the birds get sucked into that and then it creates this haloing edge around the birds. We don't want that. So we'll go to filter, we'll go to blur, we go to Gaussian blur, and I'm just gonna play around with the Gaussian blur. I don't want it too high, that's just gonna be crazy, obviously. So we'll just pull that down to about here. Okay, that can work, about 1.9. Now, I'm gonna add a mask to this. But with this mask, I'm also going to take a gradient. And with that gradient, I'm gonna make sure it's a black to transparent gradient. So once I have this mask, I have my gradient set to black to transparency. I'll just click right here and pull this up. Now I wanna make sure this is set to a linear gradient, okay? And not any other gradient. Once I have that set, I can start kind of pulling this as to where the feather is gonna be. Feather, birds, get it? And that should be good. Okay, now, let's take a look at these birds before and after. So here's your overall before. It's kind of chaos, it's kind of everywhere. We see the spoonbills, but we don't see them perfectly. Now look at them. A little bit more deliberate crop. And then we've made the background kind of go to a blur so we can see into them better. We can go into the effects and put a spotlight on here. And then maybe make this a reflected spotlight that would then go like this. I'll put it right on the birds, then move this up. Okay. And that gives them a little bit more of that light that's on them too. It's set to linear light, so let's set this to vivid light. And then I gotta make sure that it protects the highlight areas. So we'll just say, we'll double click on this, and we'll really start to protect those highlight areas on those birds from getting hit too hard with blend if. That way they still get that light. So really the goal of this was just to get the eye looking at those birds. Now this is a technique that could save a lot of photos. This could help you save a portrait photo if you don't have the right bokeh in the background. And I know some people will light me up in the comments and say, well, I never take a picture unless I have the perfect aperture for it. Yeah, okay, cool. Then you're perfect. I get it. Some of us who are not sitting on the pedestal of perfection could use this as some guidance to help them make things a little bit blurrier in the background. Our showcase image comes from F64 Elite member PRATIBHA Reddy. This is awesome. I love this. It's so delicate. Those are words that come to mind, delicate. But what I really love about this is the power of a really strong complementary color scheme happening right in front of me. We've got a very strong juxtaposition between pink and green that is not creating a sense of tension. It's creating this gorgeous sense of unity in the fact that they both are basically about the same tonal quality. What I mean by that is that if you were to put maybe like a black and white layer on here, these pinks might not look distinguishable from the greens, and the greens might not be distinguishable from the pinks. And then you take the black and white layer off and you see that, oh wow, look at that. There are two individual colors here after all. And that's a good thing, because I think if the pink was stronger than the green, it would draw my attention too much, and it wouldn't be about the environment at that point. Actually, the place where you've put the most intense color is actually on the bee, which is the subject, which is awesome. So I could almost look at this image without a bee in it at all and be just as enamored by the beauty in the tone and color processing that you have here. I really would. But now there's a bee there, and that just makes it all the more interesting, and you've put a higher intensity of color on that bee than anywhere else in the image. And to me, that's expert use of color. I think this is well done, and it's one of those images that when I see something like this, it really inspires me to want to go out and get my macro set up and just start hunting for those bees as they're looking for their nectar. And if I may, I want to say a couple words about PRATIBHA, because we've had several one-on-one sessions together, and I've watched her go from not really being able to see her vision very well to just seeing her masterfully be able to tap into it whenever she wants. And I see that only through her work. Obviously, I know that it's a constant struggle, but I just want her to know that I'm proud of her for all of the hard work that she puts into her craft and her vision. And it really, in my opinion, it's coming through in this beautiful photo. So thanks, PRATIBHA. All right, that'll about conclude day 20. We're not going to do a donation update because this is pre-recorded, so you'll get your donation update tomorrow for Monday's video on day 21. As you're watching these critiques, you might be thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could just open up my images and get to a point where I could see them just like this. And the thing is, you can. All right. I've created something called the self-critique guide. And with this self-critique guide, I've taken all of the things that I think about, the subjective things that I think about, or seemingly subjective things that I think about, and I've made them objective so that you can ask yourself 4 reflection questions. And when you ask yourself these very specific questions, it'll help you dial in your vision. And then while you're editing your image, before, during, or after, you could run this 6-step self-critique checklist. And between the reflection questions and the 6-step checklist, I think you'll find that you'll be making much better adjustments to your images as you work, because you'll be thinking about the things that matter, not the technique that you learned last week on YouTube, but how is this image going to connect with my viewer? And that's the important stuff. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description below, the self-critique guide. When you click that link, it'll take you to a page. You put your email in there and you'll be able to download my self-critique guide. This is a 22-page PDF, a very thoughtful PDF. I didn't just throw this together. This took me a couple days to put together. I also recorded 2 critique style videos of my own images that will help you see what I do when I'm editing my images. And then at the very end, I'll wrap it up and I'll talk about critiquer and critique your responsibilities before I let you go. You can print this 22-page PDF, keep it right next to your workspace so that you will always know the direction you want for your work. And just know that any download of this puts 50 cents towards Give Kids Art. So if you'd like to critique yourself like I critique these images, grab that guide in the description below. Now, I know we didn't do a twist or a challenge today, but go ahead and put your twist or challenge in the comment below and we'll pick that back up tomorrow on day 21. Before we go, I just want to thank all of the F64 Elite members for continually putting images into the 30 days 30 critique session pot. I am every day going in and pulling all the new images that get uploaded, so I appreciate you for always having something there. We have over 500 images in this batch and they just keep growing, sometimes 5 to 10 a day, sometimes more than that depending on the submissions, but it just keeps growing, the pot gets bigger, and it just gives us more options to look at. So these images are provided to you who are not F64 Elite members by F64 Elite members, and they're bravely putting themselves out there to be seen by the world. And I think that definitely deserves a round of applause there. So thank you guys so much for doing that, and we'll pick up tomorrow.